We're gonna play a quick little game here, Jose. Okay. Minnie has a shirt that says, "If you want to touch my beard," and we don't see what's below it, we have to guess how that sentence gets completed without Minnie
All right.
showing us.
If you want to touch my beard, I get to touch you.
I like that. If you want to touch my beard, start at the balls.
First, check if the carpet matches the drapes.
If you want to touch my beard without asking, I get to touch your butt without asking.
That's pretty good. Welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a podcast by filmmakers who talk movies, television, and get permission to touch other people's butts. I'm your host,
Oh, no.
Jose
No
Ramos.
I confused me there for a second. I am not your host, forever a bridesmaid.
And I grab people without consent. Min Diesel.
Exactly. He's been canceled so many times that he's uncanceled now. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about underappreciated or underrepresented actors, actresses. That's what we're going to dive into. Hence my nickname, Jose Ramos, an underappreciated actor. But first, we're going to hit you with our current event.
During the filming of the Batman, Matt Reeves recently revealed that he had Paul Dano do 70 to 80 takes of his final confrontation scene with the Batman. 70 to 80 takes of the same scene. Now, someone who's done acting, I know how I feel about it. How do you guys feel about it?
I came across an interview with Ian McKellen talking about Lord of the Rings. And Christopher Lee was complaining about how many takes that Peter Jackson had him do for like 2 lines. And then Ian McKellen was like, "Oh, you only did 20? We did 60 the other day." And just like brushed it off. Like, that's just the way that he works. So, I mean, if you're looking for a particular thing and you're not getting it, and you have to do 70 takes, maybe try explaining it better.
In The Shining, Stanley Kubrick is known for doing an exuberant amount of takes. The scene where the blood comes out of the elevator, it took them over a year to do that shot because they had to keep reloading the blood and getting it, and they did so many takes of that the blood wasn't splashing the way that he wanted it to until they finally did.
But I think that's different because that's an effect rather than like trying to get an actor to a certain point. Like effects, obviously, especially back then before computer generated graphics, like you have to get everything right, and if it doesn't work, you got to completely reset that effect.
That's a good point. And I have a question for both of you guys being actors. How irritating is that for you as an actor? Does that mean that the director is so like micromanaging you guys that if it requires that many takes, he's not allowing you guys, the thespians, to be able to incorporate your own form of interpretation?
That definitely is what it feels like. I mean, I never did something that required 70 to 80 takes, but I did many years of theater growing up, all the way since like the 4th grade. And I think, one of the reasons I never went back to theater after I moved to like LA and stuff is because of the repetitive rehearsal. Like, at least for me personally, when you're having to do something over and over and over and over again, it starts to lose some of the effect, like for me. And some of my energy towards it, like, starts to go away where it's like, you're not gonna get it from me. On performance night, you'll get it from me. But it was like, I just don't have the energy to keep doing this over and over again. It gets stale. And I don't want it to get stale because on opening night, like I want to destroy it when I get out there. And the repetitive rehearsals, when sometimes you'll be rehearsing the same thing for 3 months, it can get stale in there. So it
Practice?
does seem
You want to talk about practice?
practice. Yeah, it's on the
Yeah.
court.
Yeah.
But that's what it feels like. Like, I can't imagine being there and doing the same scene, saying the same lines, trying to reach in and pull, because it was a highly emotional scene. That's not just a regular conversation. Trying to pull from that 70 to 80 times over and over again. And when you are performing a emotional scene, that's mentally and physically draining. in there because you have to pull a lot of times from personal experience to do that, to bring out that emotion. Now you're having to do that over and over again. It's like you're reliving the same like torture over and over again. So like I can see that definitely being taxing. I mean, in the end result where Daniel was good, but we don't know. That might have been the second take. And he might have done 70, 80 take, but like, you know what, those original ones, those are probably your strongest in there. So I'm not a fan of the exuberant amount of takes. I mean, would I do it if it's required? Yes, but I would not be happy. I would write a strongly worded letter that I will not give to the director. Once I get it on paper, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I think if once you hit double digits in takes, then it's not a lack of ability, it's just a lack of communication with what the director is requiring or what the director wants to see, and the actor not, like, they're just not on the same page at that point. And the communication just needs to be better. Like, I think Samuel L. Jackson at one point said he doesn't do more than one take because, like, this is what you said you wanted, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. You want to do a second take? No. Like, maybe some directors can get away with doing 2, 3, 4 takes, but if you're doing double digit takes, like, there's a miscommunication somewhere, and you got to figure out what you want, where the miscommunication is, get on the same page, and then get it done.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because at that point, if you're dealing with like the 20th take, your energy is exhausted. You've already tried your original idea, your enthusiasm for it. How much more do you have in you? The only instance I can really see that happening is if it's supposed to be like a really intense scene, that's dramatic. Like I'll use The Shining again as an example. You know, when we had Shelley Duvall climbing up the stairs and she's swinging the baseball bat, you know, at Jack Nicholson, I believe it was over 100 takes that they did that Kubrick had to did that, and he took one of the later takes on it, and she was so emotionally exhausted that you can see it in the scene. But for something like the Batman, and you were talking about with Dano, I don't see why the performance needs to be to that level of exhaustion. So I don't see why it necessarily required that. But
yeah, that's a good point too. Like, if the scene requires somebody to be exhausted, then, like, yeah, okay, do as many takes as you can to get them to that point.
yeah,
But like, most of the time, it's completely uncalled for to do more than 10 takes.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of gives me a feeling of kind of like OCD in a way where maybe he saw what he wanted, but it was like, what if there's a possibility that I might get something better? Let's keep
Mm-hmm.
going. Like I already have my take. That was really good, but because he even said supposedly he told Daniel like, "Oh, that was fantastic," but then he had him keep doing it. So it was like maybe he had his take, but he was just like, "Let's just do 70 more just in case something else comes up that's better."
Like, well, why
Just
would
making them earn
it?
that money.
Yeah. Like why would it? Because you figure the first one is always you know, with you guys being on set, it's always like, okay, give a few to the director, and then usually at the end, if the director's nice, they'll give one to you, the actor, to do what you want with it. How many of those do you need, and how many ideas do you have doing the same thing? Because then at that point, if you have a whole day dedicated to one scene, maybe, but usually you're filming a couple of scenes, you're going to be exhausted by the time you guys get to the next scene. You're using too much creativity. So, you know, I don't know.
Imagine if the scene requires yelling or something like that. Like how long is your voice gonna stand
Yes,
having to do that
that's
over and over again? So
exactly. But all right, let's
but
get into our main topic then. So, underrated actors. So, what do you guys consider, like, what are the parameters when you guys consider underrated actors, right? Because if somebody was telling me, oh, an underrated actor, and you try to tell me, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio, all of us would be like, no, he's not underrated.
yeah.
So, what would classify for you guys as underrated?
The way I look at it for an underrated actor is someone who's predominantly you're not seeing them in leading roles. Kind of like my name, always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah.
So they're in these movies. They may be in good movies, but they're never the center focus. They were mostly supporting. So that's one thing. Also, someone that doesn't get mentioned a lot when people are talking about top actors. Usually, you'll have your main names that come out, like, DiCaprio or Denzel Washington. You get like those main names that always repeatedly gets thing. So if you have someone who's really good, it doesn't get thrown in those lists, underrated. And also maybe someone who's not widely known by the general audience. Like, we know a lot of people because we watch a lot of content, a lot of movies, we read a lot about this stuff. But that general audience who doesn't check the internets for who's in movies and read movie news and see a ton of movies, will they recognize this person by name?
As soon as I heard the topic, I thought of one particular actor, but then I was like, I know exactly what he's in, but I don't know his name. So like I had to look up what he's been in to get his name. So that's what I considered an underrated actor. Like you see them in everything. They're there. They're always a key part in that, but they're not a household name. So that's the route that I ended up taking. Was you see them, they're working consistently, they're in great films, great TV shows, but they're not always the lead, and you have trouble remembering what their name is.
Like Hector.
Yes, exactly. That actor, which isn't even his real life name, but that's his character name. I also had no longer getting active roles. So maybe it was somebody that was a little popular back in the 90s, let's say 2000s, but for some reason they're just not getting a lot of roles lately. And it's like they're underrated in the aspect of they should still be given a lot of roles. Like, why are they not doing more movies lately? And especially if it's not by choice. And then another one is they're just not getting a lot of award love. Now, maybe they've been nominated, but they've never actually won. So they're not necessarily Oscar winning actors or actresses. That's kind of some of the parameters I looked on top of what you guys said as well. Speaking of meaty roles, we have our episode sponsor, Pete's Meat, that provides you all kinds of plushy meat that you can go ahead and grope, which that's the kind of meat that many can grope. So they serve you tri-tip, pork bellies, anything you want. They serve it up to you. You can follow them at Pete's Meats, sfv.com. They'll let you know it's a pop-up so you can find out where they're serving their food next.
That's where you can get the best carne. And for those who don't know, carne is Spanish for meat.
Yeah, it is.
With the first one, I gotta go, and this is usually one of the first people that pops in my head when I think of underrated actors, because I don't think I've ever seen a bad performance by this person, but they usually are supportive. Ben Foster.
Ooh, that's a good
Ben,
one. That's a
very
good
That's a solid
one.
one.
underrated. He's played a variety of different characters. He's played like weird, not right in the head characters. He's played badass, characters. He's played serious. Uh, some of the movies that people might recognize him from, and if you haven't watched them, one is like Hell or High Water, which is one of my favorite movies. He kills it in that one. Lone Survivor, he does good in that one, which was now, he's playing a soldier on top of that. 310 to Yuma, where he plays a badass character. This is more of the Western. And then 30 Days of Night, where you get that weird, like something's wrong with him, screw loose type of character. So he's shown a lot of variety. You've seen him in so many things. Most people, you show the face and you're like, what's his name? They won't be able to tell you. As simple as Ben Foster, the name is. So that's why he has to be my first choice.
That's a
He
great
was
call.
also in, yeah, he was in it was a Bruce Willis movie where he played an unhinged character. I can't remember the name of the movie, but like he was going after like Bruce Willis's daughter. Bruce Willis was like a small town cop. And there was just a one scene where like the blood's pouring out of his mouth and he's like chasing her. And that was a fantastic movie. He did a great job in that movie.
He was in every performance, no matter how small, because like the 30 Days of Night, it was a very small role. He wasn't even supporting in that. He's just a side character. But when it was his time in the scene, your focus was on him.
That's a great call, man. The very first
Yeah.
time I ever saw him in was in some Canadian, like I think it was high school or junior high show, something like that when I first saw him. And I was like, okay. And then sort of like how Shia LaBeouf was when he was in Even Stevens. And all of a sudden you see them break out and start doing this real acting. And it's like, oh man, they are really good. That's how it felt with Ben Foster. So,
The guy that I got on my first list, the first one that popped in my head when Jose brought the topic up, is Paul Walter Hauser.
Who?
Paul Walter Hauser, Stingray
okay.
in Cobra Kai.
Oh,
Who's also
Oh,
he's so
yes.
good. That's a great choice. He is so good.
exactly like again like the theme that I have for all of mine is like they're in everything. Like he's in Cobra Kai. He won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor in the limited series. He had a supporting
Blackbird.
role in I, Tanya.
He was in
Yeah,
Blackbird. He was really
yeah,
good in
Really
Blackbird.
good
Like
in
he was
Blackbird.
so
Blackbird.
Yeah.
so unnerving in that role.
Yeah, he's the lead in Richard Jewell, directed by Clint Eastwood, and he's just got the rumor is he's cast in Quentin Tarantino's last film, The Movie Critic,
Mm-hmm.
as the lead. But again, as soon as you said that, I knew the guy, but I had to figure out what his name was.
Yep, that's a
So
good pick. And the fact that he's wanted right now, like you said, he's he was I know he was offered the role for Tarantino's one. They can't technically say whether he accepted it because I think of the strike, but it sounds like he's gonna, he's booked for it. But great call, man. That dude's phenomenal. He does comedy very well, but then it's the dramatic that he does very well. And it's like, ooh, when you could pull off that double, that's what the people that I went with did that. They followed a
yeah,
little bit of that. You could do comedy and you could do drama.
It
yeah.
was because
Oh,
the last two projects I saw him in was Blackbird, and he destroyed it in Blackbird. He did so good in that. And then the
Mm-hmm.
next thing I see him in is the Apple TV show After Party, the second season, where he plays this goofy like character that wants to be like a noir detective, and it's like so contrasting. So definitely, maybe that Tarantino movie is the one that takes him out of the underrated category.
Hopefully,
yeah,
man.
and the other thing,
Hopefully.
like, he doesn't look like a leading man either. Like he's not the
Mm-mm.
stereotypical Hollywood leading man. So he definitely flies under the radar. But
Yeah.
great fucking actor. Great
Yeah.
fucking actor.
Yes.
Good choice on
Absolutely.
that one for
All
sure.
right. So here's one that I went with. Here's an actor that I know film heads know of, and he's regarded as a great actor, but the guy doesn't get nearly enough roles, and I don't think the general population knows who he is. Tim Roth. Tim Roth.
He
That's
was
So
a
on
good
my
one.
list.
yes, was he? Okay, so
Yeah.
so just the character that he played Pumpkin in Pulp Fiction can show you how crazy and nuts he can be, and we saw how well he does with Tarantino with how he was in Mr. Orange and Reservoir Dogs. But then we've seen him be the evil, like even though the Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton movie wasn't very good with Mark Wahlberg, but the fact that he played that character Thade, the villain, he did so good in. But there's a movie I want to highlight. There's a movie called The Legend of 1900. And it's a movie that I don't know anybody else that's ever seen the movie, but it's about a little boy that's discovered on an ocean liner in 1900, and he grows up as a musical prodigy, but he never steps foot on land. So he's known as just living on this boat, and the legend of him kind of grows from there. But he gets anxiety about stepping on a land. But it's a dramatic role that he plays in, and he was the lead in that movie. He crushed that movie. I remember watching it. I don't remember how or why I watched it, but he was so good in that role. So he shows good parts of vulnerability while also still showing the crazy nuts that he has. We've seen him do comedy. Tim Roth's awesome, man. He needs more roles.
That's right, because you see him do those roles there, and then even though the show itself was not to my liking, you see him be the comic relief in She-Hulk. All right, so for my next one, let me see. I was debating here a little bit. I'm gonna go with Sam Rockwell.
Oh, good one. I love me some Sam Rockwell.
Sam is another one. Again, you see him pop up in so many things, and he never shortchanges you with his performances at all. And I mean, he did. There was like one lead role that he had, which was Moon. I mean, I'm sure he might have others, but that's like one that I remember the most. But that movie itself is underrated. It doesn't get a lot of attention. And I think if maybe that movie had one of your big names like a Christian Bale instead of Sam Rockwell, that movie probably would have been bigger and gotten more attention. But Sam Rockwell it fits in that category that always gives you a good performance, but people don't look at him that way at all. It's like he's friend zoned from acting greatness. Like he's never the one.
Yeah.
They're gonna pick there.
Forever a
Um,
bridesmaid.
yeah. So some of his highlights, I said Moon. Great individual performance. It's kind of like Castaway in the way for anyone who hasn't seen it. The fact that it's pretty much him there, so it's a bigger emphasis on his acting because he has to keep you entertained for that whole movie. Seven Psychopaths is another one. You get to see a different side of him on that than what you got from Moon. And then more recent, as in for the last few years, we had Jojo Rabbit, which he played a really interesting character, and it's a highlight of a lot of the scenes that he's in. So we got such variety. Again, kind of like you mentioned before, some serious, some psychotic, and some funny, like a little bit of everything he touches on.
I almost had him
and
on my
Iron
list.
Man too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spider-Man too. So I almost had him on my list, but like you said, the how he can switch it. So he was the you hated him in the Green Mile. He was so
Mhm.
vile in that, and then you loved him in Guy in Galaxy Quest. Like that,
Oh,
you
yeah.
see the opposite of what he does, and that's where you find the underrated because it's not like they're just character actors, right? Like every time you see them, they're very specific in what they do. No, it's that versatility. That's to me is like these people are really amazing actors and they're just not known enough. So good pick.
Yeah, these are the people, all the ones that we've mentioned so far, and part of the ones that we're gonna mention that they're not considered the upper echelon, but a lot of these really good movies are not running without these people. They
Absolutely.
are kind of the glue that holds it together and lets the main star shine.
I want to see if you guys can guess this one. So, three of his most popular projects are Deadwood, Kung Fu Panda, and John Wick.
Yeah, it's and his name, he has the John Wick spinoff, the hotel one, right? It's damn, what's his name? The main guy that was in Deadwood, right?
Wait, is
Yeah, Ian
No,
McShane.
Ian
Shane?
McShane. There
Yeah.
you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Wasn't he also in that God's show?
He's in American Gods. He
American Gods.
appeared in an episode of Game of Thrones. He's currently
Oh
narrating.
yeah, he was in
Yeah,
Game of Thrones. That's right.
yeah. He's currently narrating the live action One Piece. He was Blackbeard in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like this is another actor who's
Mm-hmm.
he's been in a lot of major
Mm-hmm.
projects, but as you guys just proved, you don't know his name. Like
Yeah.
you know who he is, but like when you have to point him out in a lineup, like it's hard.
He's
Yeah.
a
Like
scene stealer too.
He's good,
yeah,
man. He's good. He plays such great villains. He has that great
he,
villain
he,
look.
he just has that great voice too.
Yeah, he does.
Like his voice is fantastic. He's got a lot of voiceover projects as well. Like he's solid and he's always funny too.
There's a
Mm-hmm.
smoothness to like his characters.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain smoothness. Like I know he besides, I know the John Wick movies focus on Keanu, but he is a major part of the John Wick series, and every scene that he's in, like you want to hear more of what he's gonna say. And he does such a good job of portraying that gray area with a character where it was like, okay, you're not good, but you're not bad. And it was
Yeah.
like I can work with you, but I can't fully trust you. And like those type of characters, he does so good, and he does it so smoothly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
And I
does.
mean just honorable mention as well. I don't think you guys have this guy on your list in the John Wick universe. Louis Riddick is just
Mm.
fantastic as well. Like he passed way too soon,
Yeah.
obviously, but like me and Jose played Destiny for a long time, and he was a focal point of that series, the John
Fringe,
Wick
one of my
series.
favorite sci-fi shows. He was in
Mm-hmm.
that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Louis Riddick is definitely deserves to be on this list as well.
Yeah,
Never
definitely.
never forget the skit
Oh,
that
the
he did
funnier
when he
guy
was
sketch.
working at like a
Oh,
Toys R Us or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was
Do you
funny.
think the Bakugan figures deserve what you
Yeah,
just did to them?
he's so yeah, the way he talks, man, he was so prominent, very distinguishable. Okay, here's one that I did. Female actress, got to give a shout out to the female. Helena Bonham Carter. So she's a very, very good actress. She's been nominated. She's never won. She's never really led a ton. And I don't think the general audience really knows who she is, but they've seen her face a lot. So she's popped up as, the Queen of Hearts in the Alice in Wonderland movies. But, she did Fight Club.
Harry Potter.
Yeah,
right? She
Harry
was in Harry
Potter.
Potter.
She was phenomenal as Bellatrix Lestrange. Like she
Yeah.
plays that dark. She does so well with Tim Burton, but she plays that dark really well. But then even when she was in Big Fish,
Well,
the movie Big
they're
Fish,
married, aren't
they were. I don't know if they still
they?
are
Oh,
or
they were.
not. Yeah.
Okay.
But even in Big Fish, she plays, in the surrealistic world, you see her playing the witch, and then you see her playing the more docile, the daughter. So you see the complexity of it, and you even hear her singing when she was in Sweeney Todd. So she's shown a huge range of her acting ability, and she was even, like I said, she was Oscar nominated for The King's Speech. But it's one that she's been around a lot, and I just don't think she gets praised enough for the type of work that she's done. And I don't know if she's necessarily being put on a lot of people's top female actresses, but I think she's phenomenal, man. She does comedy really well. She does the dramatic really well, and she plays such a great villain.
Oh yeah, she plays a great psycho. That's a
Yeah.
good
Hmm.
choice. I honestly, you could have gave me like 20 guesses, and I probably would not have come up with
Yeah,
her name.
right.
But I can't disagree in any way with
Yeah.
that. Again, and it sounds repetitive, but this is another person who never cheats you with their performance. Doesn't matter.
Mm.
The movie can be bad, it can be horrible, it can be good. You know you're gonna get it from them. For my next one, I actually also went with an actress. Um, I went with Toni Collette on this one.
Yes, yes.
This is someone that we see a lot. She's done movies, she's done TV shows, miniseries, things like that. And whenever you ever see a bad Toni Collette
Never,
performance,
never.
and I would put it in the category of new age scream queen. You know, she's got some good horror content under her belt. And for those who are not familiar, some of her highlights are Hereditary, which is a great horror movie, and she
Mm-hmm.
kills it in that one. An older one, Little Miss Sunshine,
Mm-hmm.
was another one that she was in. She also had this a newer good like mini series, I believe it
Mm-hmm.
might be on Apple TV called Pieces of Her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a thriller, and she does a really good job on that one too. And she has a great scream. She has a
Yes.
great like I'm scared and a great
Phenomenal.
scream. One of the best out there, I think,
My
at that.
favorite. My favorite, to be honest, because we had an episode where we talked about like Scream Queens and all that. And Toni Collette's my choice because between Hereditary and The Sixth Sense, ooh, she is good, my friend. She is one of my favorite actresses. I think, especially current actresses, top five easily. I love me some Toni Collette. Great choice.
This is gonna fit right into this. I have no idea who you're talking about.
Have you seen
Um,
This fits.
Hereditary? You haven't
This
seen
no, I
Hereditary or
no, I
Sixth
haven't seen it.
Sense?
This fits right into it. Like I don't. I have no idea who you guys are talking about. Like I don't even
Ooh.
recognize the name. I'll keep the actress thing going around. Um, Carla Gugino. Did I say that right?
Oh, yes, the one from she was in Sin City.
Sin City,
Mm-hmm.
Entourage, Watchmen,
oh,
Sucker
Hot
Punch.
MILF.
Yeah, yeah. She was an American Gangster with Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe. She was the robot in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, as well as Batman vs Superman and Justice League. She voiced the ship. Like
Mm.
she's another one. She's been in a lot, but I can't even pronounce her name right.
And she's actually has a new show coming out on Netflix called The Fall of the House of Usher
Hmm.
Yeah,
in there, and she's a major part of that one too. No, that's also a really good choice. She's been in so much more things than I can even remember. She always pops up.
She's phenomenal. She's really good. She shows a lot of different range. She has the comedic timing in it very well, but she gets that intensity. She's good choice.
yeah.
Very good choice. Um, here's one that I went with. Here's one that I believe a lot of film heads know of and
Oh,
like.
Dan doing extra.
Yes, but he needs more work. Okay. So for my final choice, I have Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
Love me
Yeah,
some Steve
he was on my
Buscemi.
list too.
Yes, man. So between uh Mr. Pink and Reservoir Dogs, and then you have the Big Lebowski where he plays Donnie. My favorite performance from him probably is in the movie Fargo. But he still does the voice of Randall in Monsters Inc. We saw him in Con Air. So the great thing about him, and I want to highlight, so when we see,
Armageddon.
of course, Armageddon, but the great thing about him is that when you have the Reservoir Dogs and you have the Big Lebowski, two very polar opposite type of characters. So you have one that's more sniveling, loser, very introverted, no confidence at all, versus Reservoir Dogs, where he plays like a thug, a robber, completely cocky, doesn't want to tip the waitress because I could do the same job that they can do. So why am I going to tip somebody that can do it that I could do it myself? It's so opposite, and they came around somewhat around the same time. So Steve Buscemi has been around in the industry for a long time, and lately it feels like all he's doing are like kind of, more comedies that aren't high caliber. It seems like
Mhm.
he's getting kind of lost in the weeds a little bit, and it's unfortunate because Steve Buscemi, I believe, has award-winning type performances and some that he should get more love for, and I want to see him get more roles that suit that better.
He
And just
has an absolutely fantastic death reel. Him and Sean Bean's
Yes.
death reel is like top notch
Mm-hmm.
right
And then
there.
Fargo with the
I would
legs.
just say I just recently did a rewatch of Fargo, and I just forgot how good he was in that one too.
Dude, he steals it, man. And he's going against like William H. Macy and everything, who's phenomenal in that movie as well. But he's so good with the Coen brothers. And there's a movie called Paris, I Love You, which is like a collection of short films and done by different directors. There's one that the Coen brothers directed that he's in that's really, really good, and it's like a short, that he's in it, but he's good, man. I love me some Steve Buscemi.
All right, real quick before we go to the next question. Uh, no extra information. One honorable mention, just the name, real quick.
Paul Giamatti.
Okay.
Okay,
Paul
I can see
Giamatti.
that.
Okay,
All
I
right.
got one.
Paul Giamatti.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Michelle Williams.
Ooh, yes, that's a good choice right there.
Great. Yeah.
Uh, I'll go James McAvoy.
Ooh, James McAvoy is great. I love me some, James McAvoy. Yeah.
Good one.
All
Okay.
right, so we named all our actors. We have three each, not counting the honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
Going in there. If we were to recast them in a recent movie and put them in place of another person, what would you recast each of them in? Ben Foster had a recent movie that came out, one that came out this year, Knock on the Cabin.
Mm.
And I would put him in the spot of Rupert, the guy from Harry Potter. He didn't do a bad job, but I feel it would be
Mm-hmm.
elevated with Ben
Mm-hmm.
Foster playing that role.
It would have been less comedic and more intense, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, like
yeah,
because especially that character was supposed to be the more unhinged out of all of them, and we know Ben Foster can do unhinged.
yes, he
So,
can.
Yeah. So for Paul Walter Hauser, I was talking to Jose about this earlier. I struggled because I've been slacking on recent movies. Um, but you could put Paul Walter Hauser in another underrated actor's role. Because I'm gonna blank on his name, but in Indiana Jones, the guy that he was with on the train, who ended up being the
Mm.
girl's father, Toby something, right?
Yeah, yeah. He played
But you could,
damn, I forgot what the movie that he was
he
in.
was he was also in the Avengers movies
Mm-hmm.
as the AI or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But like you
oh,
could replace it with that. Yeah, it's
okay.
another underrated actor who's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like he definitely fits on here. Like, but you could switch
Yeah.
him out, and I think it would bring something completely different to the role.
For Tim Roth, I went with the Banshees of Inisherin. Love the movie.
Oh my
And
God.
not to replace Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell's too damn good. I would have replaced him in the calm role, which was played by Brendan Gleeson. Brendan Gleeson did a very good job, but to have Tim Roth in that role, I just think it would have again, it's not that Brendan Gleeson did a bad job. It just would have been a different interpretation. It would have had a little more energy to it. And I would be very excited to see Tim Roth and Colin Farrell in the scene together.
That was good. Which, by the way, I would consider Colin Farrell an underrated actor. I would throw him in that category too. Um, but yeah, when you said that one, I automatically saw it, and I didn't think replacing Colin Farrell because I think you got to keep that older and younger dynamic on
Mm-hmm.
that, but I think he can kill that role.
Yeah.
All right. For my next one, it was Sam Rockwell. You know what, throw him in because he is so good at comedy when he goes through. I'll put him in the new Dungeons and Dragons
Ooh,
movie.
for Chris Pine.
Yeah, in the role of Chris Pine. I think he could pull
Mm,
off. Not again. This doesn't mean the people we're replacing
mm-mm,
did a bad job. This is
mm-mm,
just imagining a movie that these actors can fit in also, and I think
mm-mm.
he can pull off that role. And while Chris Pine's comedy timing is good, I think Sam Rockwell can bring it to another level.
Ian McShane, just because of his voiceover work,
Mm-hmm.
if we could add death into the Flash movies, I think
Mm.
he could have voiced it perfectly. Like the embodiment of death as the Flash for or the Speed Force
Mm.
would have been really great. Or even,
Yeah.
and I think that would have been so much better than Ezra Miller
Yes.
as the villain as
Yes.
well.
Yes, I agree with that. That would be an improvement. Do Steve Buscemi on this one. I'll save Helena for the last one. But so there's a movie called, okay, ironic enough, he'd actually be replacing a Sam Rockwell character. So even though I love Sam Rockwell and Sam Rockwell did very good in this role, I love Steve Buscemi and it'd just be interesting to see it. So Steve Buscemi hasn't gotten a good quirky comedy in a while. So there's a movie called See How They Run, which is like a classic 1950s whodunit set in London. So it has a lot of like British type of comedy, but it's centered around actors in a play. And I think if you would have put Steve Buscemi in the detective role, it'd be interesting. And to kind of see that balance, like the thing with Steve Buscemi is that he has a very particular way in how he does certain delivery. And I just think it would be very interesting to see him with British comedy. So I went with that one.
Alright. I haven't seen that movie, but Steve
It's pretty
Buscemi
good.
mixed
I
it
like
with
it.
British comedy. I'm like, I would like to see it. For my last one, for Tony Collette, because I gotta put her in a horror movie in there. So I would go with Evil Dead Rise,
Oh,
um,
yes.
as the non-possessed sister. Because
Oh,
I want to hear
oh,
that
okay.
scream. I want
Yes,
her to, but because the sister who was possessed did a great job in that
she did.
role. Um, and I feel sometimes their interaction together, she overshadowed the non-possessed sister. I don't remember what the actress's name is, but if you
Mm,
put, I think, Toni Collette there, I think she can match her. And I think that's gonna make for a really good dynamic, and we'll get that Collette scream.
that's good, man. I agree with that. Even if she was a possessed or not the possessed, I think she would have crushed that movie and it would have helped elevate it. Not that the actress did anything bad, but Toni Collette's she's an A-level star to me.
All right, last one. So Carla Gugino, I gotta figure out how to say her.
Carla
Sure.
G. You said Carla G.
Carla G.
Carla G. Um, I don't remember the otter's name in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but
Mm,
switching the voices for the otter,
Oh, yeah.
I think that
hmm.
would have been because the otter definitely had that, like, as Jose said, that like motherly presence for Rocket at the same time as like the love
Hmm.
interest. Like I think she could have done both very, very well,
Yeah,
and mixed it. Like brought something different to the role. Like we're saying, not necessarily saying that they did a bad job, but bringing something new. And I think that would have been a good voiceover switch.
the last one for Helena, I went with the movie Pearl. Throw her in a horror movie. So if you haven't seen it, even though I know the actress is a little older than Mia Goth did a great job about it, but you sort of have this, seeing the transformation of like an obsessed starlet, which then turns maniacal and starts killing people. I would love to see Helena do that, man, because the movie, in case you haven't seen it, it kind of opens up and it feels very Wizard of Oz, kind of, where you kind of see like a musical thing and you see her just obsessed with being like an actress. So you see that side of her, but then her obsession starts becoming more serial killer as she starts taking people out. So to see her become a murderer, yes, sign me up, please. It's like seeing her character, the Bellatrix Lestrange, but actually murdering people and blood splattered on her face. Like, yes, give me that.
I,
I'm in.
I would watch that. I enjoy Mia Goth's performance, but
Mm-hmm.
to see her in that role,
That's
yeah.
a good one. That's what I'm saying. Nothing against Mia Goth. I would love to see. I think that role would be great for her.
Maybe, or if they would have cast her as Maxine, the older version of Mia Goth, so it's still like,
Dude,
what?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, Ty West. I see what you're doing there. Let's hit them with what's on the queue. What's a movie from some of the actors that we mentioned, or at least maybe a movie from an underrated actor that you feel like that you want to recommend to our listeners?
I'm gonna have to go, and I mentioned it earlier, but it's a must see because it's so good. Hell or High Water. With Ben Foster and Chris Pine.
Good one. Minnie?
Nice. It was on my list. Didn't get a chance to talk about her today, but I've been watching TV show Ahsoka with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I think is again underrated actress in a lot of things, not necessarily a household name. And that's been doing a really good job tying everything together in the Star Wars universe.
All right. So for my recommendation, I'm gonna give you some Steve Buscemi, the movie Fargo. So if you haven't seen it, watch Fargo, man. It's so good. One of the Coen brothers' best movies by far. One of them. Thank you for watching another episode of Not a Strong Start. Please like, subscribe, comment, share on the YouTube channel Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Not a Strong Start. I'm your host, Jose Ramos. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
Oh, I like that flavor there with the name. Okay,
There
all
you
right,
go.
all right. I am not your host, forever a bridesmaid. You can find me at This Is Me Nombre on Instagram.
And I'm just a guest, Min Diesel. I will try not to grope you inappropriately. And you can find me at That Guy 2022 on Instagram.